Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat, our Sunday evening show, the shit show. How is everybody? Hello. I am reading Pat's private messages. We got a late start today. We thought we were being so casual, and now all of a sudden we're like, whoa, we're starting.
Yeah, the more ahead of the game we think we are, the more we are likely to screw up. Because
every time.
We got this.
Every time. We got it. How are you? How's your weekend been?
I'm good. Yeah, no complaints over here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I got a good beer to get me through today. I'm drinking some Red Hook. Can't complain. How about you?
I like that. Speaking of, I'm making sure I have the name right of our comedian, which I of course don't. So I want to quickly. What is my problem? Oh my God, I'm rewriting it over here without my readers. That's good. You know, you're reminding me I need to pour my glass of wine.
Yes, that's the important part.
Like the important part
on God's Day, Sunday here.
I know on God's Day. It's also Cinco de Mayo, which I did see that somebody posted. Like everybody's celebrating Cinco de Mayo. You don't know the actual history, and I bookmarked it. But I have cheers. I have no. I know I should be having a margarita. But I have no idea what the real history is, so I should do some research on that. Hi, Sam.
I honestly don't know myself very well, but I could be making this up, but I think it's one of those days that we celebrate as Americans more than Mexican Americans do.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those.
Yeah, and now all the like Mexican American restaurants are probably capitalizing on that a bit. Hi, Kim. Hi, Jason. I had a professor in college at Columbia who was from Taiwan, and it was a critical studies lit class. And he was saying that when he had first come to the US, so, I was there in the early 90s, when he had first come to the US, 25 years prior, he had gone to a Chinese restaurant, and at the end they gave him a fortune cookie, and he said, "What is this?" And they said, "Oh, it's a fortune cookie. It's what you do in China after a meal." And he was like, "No, that's never happened before. I don't know what you're talking about." It was a total US fabrication. But then he said when he went back to visit his family just recently, so again, this was in the 90s, but that was, having been absent for 20 years, they had started serving fortune cookies at some restaurants in Taiwan, which I just thought was funny.
Came full circle.
It came full circle.
That's our power in the world. Is
the capitalism.
Don't let anyone tell you that we're losing our power.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So what do you think? Should we get started? Should we start the show? Did you want to share anything about your weekend, or just any social niceties, or are we just moving right on?
I mean, I got nothing, so let's just.
We need to find some of our joy. Okay.
I want to thank all the people, heroes and sheroes. Thank you for contributing to keep this show on the air. And yeah.
Super cheers to you guys for that. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And just, when we say that, it's because we, rented a program to do some, it's little things. We're not vacationing on the Riviera, but we were able to get a couple of little bells and whistles kinds of things that makes it sort of, I think, a little more appealing or fun.
We can pay our StreamYard rent too.
Yes. Well, yeah. Oh my God. I know, it's so crazy.
But we do have a cheers. I don't know if you want to set it up, but obviously there's all these protests happening on the college campuses, and they are the front and center. I mean, it was and it still is the striking workers and the workers front, but this is like the next wave of that, a separate issue, but also there's some solidarity, and all these college kids and the outside agitators are joining them. And we want to give a shout out to them. So this is some footage from the UCLA protest encampment that was taken down, and then they went back up, thankfully. But thank you to Israelism Film. This is their footage they put together, this clip. Cheers.
The university requires that everyone must leave the encampment and all unauthorized structures and tents immediately. If you fail to leave and remain present in the encampment, you will be in violation of the law. Please leave the area immediately.
goodness.
And Gina,
This is so dangerous.
We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent.
The protest forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region?
No. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you think the National Guard should intervene?
God, I can't imagine despising that disgusting, decrepit old bag of racism, genocidal maniac any more than I already do. But this put a little button on it, even a little more. Nope, not going to change his disgusting, flipping policy.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a lot more of the violence. I mean, because the encampments are not going away quietly.
Yep. And they are really pushing these people as terrorists. So,
right. And, you know, in a way, they want to show some victories against these they want to squash the protesters. So how do they do that? They make a few examples, make it a dangerous place. That's the idea. But
yeah,
these kids have nothing to lose. There's a lot on the line. And standing by and watching our government do this is not going to work for them. So they're not going to win this fight. We are.
I am so impressed by these kids. I will tell you, and I'm watching Israelism right now, and I think probably one of these Sunday nights we'll do our deep dive will be on some of it. It's really good. It's so fascinating. One of the producers is the head of If Not Now, which is another one of these Jewish pro-Palestinian liberation groups. So that's great that they put that together. It was so well done. I will say that our good friend, Tina Desiree Berg, was at one of those protests at UCLA. And I don't know if you saw the footage, but she gets hit by a cop and like falls to the ground on a bleacher. And she's little, like she's a teeny person, as you know. Like these brutes, they like cops have slugged her. I mean, so have Proud Boys, but like cops, and she still goes back. She's just amazing. So
I remember when she got turned into a sticker because they got into a sort of a fight with her.
Yeah,
these tough guys, but they turned her image into like some tough man or something to try to make it look like they weren't beating up or trying to beat up a small woman.
Yeah,
and so they got completely clowned on their whole purpose. But they,
it's embarrassing, but it's also just so illustrative of how brutal they are, right?
They are brutal, but they're also cowards.
They're
so it's like
total cowards. And we have some videos and some threads that I am looking forward to sharing that really point out the difference in how they approach nonviolent activists and active shooters. Fascinating. So yes, cheers to that for sure. Cheers. Yes, should we what?
Cheers. Should we get to the watch party?
Let's do the watch
party.
Or
do we timeline cleanse it first? I mean, I don't know. What's more important?
Like start with something a little fun.
A little fun?
Yeah,
I think a little fun.
Not. Like we deserve a little fun.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Here's some fun.
You know, Mark, I get to say a lot of things at that podium, but I've always wanted to say something to you.
What?
May the 4th be with you.
Oh, and remember, I'll always be forcefully yours.
Oh
all right, God. That makes you want to puke.
Yeah, that did not take the stench of Biden out of my mouth. And what he wrote, like his post was something like Joby-Wan Kenobi or something.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
Kind of gross.
All right, let's show some pets and we'll get to the real stuff.
Do it.
Du jour réserve-t-elle à notre jury?
No.
Tell them what you want.
chats are hilarious. And my favorite part of that video is that it doesn't use music that's copyrighted, so I don't have to edit it out later. Hey, I also just wanted to say, way back when we were first starting this episode, Nays, congratulations, you and your new wife. That's something to celebrate and cheers. That's fantastic.
Cheers.
Mazel
Nays,
tov,
good to
as
see you, man.
yeah, cheers. And use that cannabis as much as possible. All right. So speaking of turning peaceful protesters into terrorists,
should we show the watch party?
Yeah, we should. But sorry, I just want to make sure that Nays thank you, Nays. He's given us a wedding gift. That's incredibly kind and generous. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you so much. And Strike says cheers. Yes, thank you. All right. Yeah. Watch party it up. Let's do it. All right. So we are going to start with, there was just a slew of repulsive commentary from the liberal corporate cable news media. We're going to start with everybody's favorite Morning Joe describing these peaceful protests and how they are going, according to him, and whom they're
framing is so bad.
It's disgusting.
I've got to say, you'd ask what parents were saying about this. I mean, for parents whose children are, and they're children, by the way, there's some adults, but I say this because we've got kids, obviously, of college age. I mean, obviously, there are many that are distressed. I'm sure many are concerned about their safety. I certainly hope the students got out and they're doing it peacefully right now. But Richard, this is, I tried to explain this a couple days ago. Maybe I wasn't eloquent enough. But I can tell you my family. I'm not saying the Vietnam War was a just war. It was not a just war. But I can tell you the riots on college campuses, the riots at the Chicago Convention in '68, all of those things moved my family from being Democrats their entire life to being Republicans.
God, sorry. I mean, that argument is that's like the old CIA tactic. It's what every lib does. Like, I agree with everything you're saying, but not the way you're saying it. If you can abandon your principles because you don't like some other people's tactics, they were never your principles in the first place. Like, you just thought you were part of a cool club, and now you don't think that club is as cool. But it has nothing to do. Like, you're just.
And he's saying that they were right then, right? That's his. If you read behind his argument, it's that they were right to do that, but it turned my family off. So, whether this is right or wrong, it's going to cost Biden the election is his overarching point. But that's not how news works. He shouldn't be pushing an opinion on who's going to win the election because of this, first off.
And also, as you said at the beginning, like, the framing of this buys into the fact that these kids are violent. There was no violence until the pro-Zionist protesters came or the police came. Before that, there was no violence.
Yes.
There were some Jewish students who didn't like what they were hearing and felt unsafe because opinions hurt their feelings. But
and he's scared that they're kids here. These are kids here. Well, then maybe call for the police to back the fuck off, because they are the outside agitators here. The kids are fine.
Yeah, 100%. Just disgusting. It's disgusting. Sorry, I'm just looking. I meant to put up certain things and they go through. Yes, he absolutely deserves to lose, because if he wins, in spite of everything, what it means is they never need to listen to anybody, which they don't anyway, but like, it would just confirm it. Like, we won in spite of committing genocide, in spite of the fact that most of the country doesn't want us doing this. I mean, it would reinforce every horrible conclusion that they already have.
On top of that, if we let the police shut down protests, this is a test case for what's coming, because people are outraged at the economy, Palestine. Our entire government is not listening to the public or serving us in any way. And that's why these cop cities are popping up everywhere. So
100%.
This is them waging the first war against the public on the next wave to come.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's keep watching. Sorry.
I remember I was young, and I remember my parents asking, what in the world is going on in this country? And of course, you know, they were raised in the Great Depression in rural Georgia. Kind of hard for them to hear rich kids on campus of Harvard or taking over campuses at Columbia. But if you're offended by this, please, I'm trying to help you. I don't want Donald Trump to get elected, all right?
There you go.
Trying to help you. If you're too stupid to figure that out, you change to another channel. Because we're sorting through this as a country, and this is not helping. This is not helping the people of Gaza, and this is not helping those of us who want to fight fascism in America. But Richard, you remember 68? It was a tidal wave. There's a reason that Reagan won with a lot of young voters in 1980. There's a reason the Reagan Revolution took place. The seeds were planted in 1968. And again, when I say that, I'm not saying that the Vietnam War wasn't an unjust war. It was. I'm saying there are ways, as the Rev has proven. So he proved in Vieques, as Martin Luther King has proven, as others have proven. There are ways to do this that helps the cause without hurting, without aiding the worst elements in American politics.
You know, it's such a whitewashing, as we all know, of the civil rights movement. You know, they love to say, don't break the law. Well, you know what? Using a white person water fountain was breaking the law. Sitting at the counter at Woolworths, breaking the law. And
refusing to give up your seat in a bus was breaking the law.
Right.
You know, so, and MLK, he's bringing up MLK, like MLK knew not to have protests. Like that doesn't even make sense. I mean, they're acting like
shut down traffic. Meanwhile, they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Like, what are they even talking about? It's such a lie.
Yeah, and for him to say that this is not helping the people in Gaza, like, oh, the world coming together for Gaza is not helping them. It's not helping them enough because they're still not listening. Our government's still not listening to us. But like this, what else can we do at this point? I mean, we are doing everything we can. And if this isn't helping, that just means we need to do more.
Right. Exactly. But again, like these people who act like they would be part of the civil rights movement, they would have been part of this poll that Kyle Klinsky just shared, but it was from 1961. Do you think sit-ins at lunch counters, freedom buses, and other demonstrations by Negroes will help or hurt the Negroes' chance of being integrated in the South? 57% said it would hurt. So that's what the white liberal always does every time they get a chance. They are always they you know, it's that same tweet that I love because it was put so succinctly and now I'll butcher it. But, you know, liberals love every civil rights protest except the one that's currently happening. And they hate every war except the one that's currently happening. And that's exactly right. They never have the courage of other people's convictions. And so they just lambast them and pretend that they'd be on the right side of stuff, but they just don't like your methods. That is the whole tactic. It's vile.
They're so brainwashed into thinking all that matters is who's president.
Yeah.
A Democrat or a Republican. That's what matters. You know, I mean,
what's he talking about? Fighting fascism.
The guy on the right is gross and I hate him.
Yeah.
But like, there's policy behind all this stuff. Do you not understand? Like, and the way they keep framing everyone who doesn't agree with Israel as the ignorant, less informed, naive person, when you could put the average Palestine supporter up against anybody else.
Yep.
And they are so much more informed on all these issues.
100%. And then they'll make fun of them and say, Oh, they just learned about it 6 months ago. All right, well, 6 months ago is better than not caring now. It certainly ramped up. Yes, there've been, almost 100 years or more of Zionism and 75 years of, the state of Israel and occupation. Right. But good for them. Like, we've all had to teach ourselves a lot.
Yeah, on October 7th, it was put in everyone's faces. And people that follow news and politics and are intrigued and care are going to tune in and learn the facts on it. Even if you weren't beforehand, how could you couldn't ignore it. So and the difference between this and some of the other, there are genocides happening in the world as well right now. But this is the one we're funding. We have the power to stop. We're behind it. We are the number 2 person in this war. Yeah.
And some level number 1, because without Biden, it would be over. I mean, without the US funding, arming, providing cover, the vetoes, like all of that stuff. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next bit of propaganda. Here we go. CNN, Abby Phillip.
Crushing.
Where does this all go next? Joining me now to talk about this is Duke professor Frank Bruni. He is a New York Times op-ed columnist and the author of The Age of Grievance. Frank, great to have you here. Very timely subject for your book. I want to start kind of with the big picture here, because we've been seeing these images from the schools. But what's beneath them is what I see as a strain of absolutism. What do you see, and where do you think that comes from?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Some of what we're seeing is specific to the war in Gaza, right? Some of it is particular to the environment of a college campus. But I think a lot of this is about a larger culture and context, and a way in which every disagreement in American life right now gets raised to or near the boiling point. And that happens because the opposite sides dig in. Nobody really wants to understand where the other side's coming from. We confuse conviction and confrontation. And then, as you saw in what Donald Trump was saying just then, you have various political actors come in to score political points, right? And they have no interest in calming the situation. They just want to exploit and inflame it. Right now, you have the right saying this shows an entire generation brainwashed by wokeness. And you have the left saying that this shows the dawn of an oppressive police state. It shows neither of those things. But when you shout those complaints in the public square, you guarantee this is going to go on and get worse.
Yeah.
How the hell does he have a job? How does this not show the brutal crackdown of our militarized police state?
Well, it doesn't show it because CNN doesn't show it. So he can just say that.
Like, they are leaving out the biggest part of these confrontations, which is, I mean, just the way they frame it. Police, pro-Palestinian protesters clash.
Yeah. So I was torn. I thought the Dana Bash clip we're going to show was one of the worst, but there's a lot of propaganda going on in this one. It's pretty disgusting how he just glosses. They just move past things so quick and pretend that they are looking at the big picture and not turning this into a cartoon style,
right,
truncated,
well, they're both sidesing it. They act like you like genocide and you don't. Listen, right. Can't you both come together in the middle?
They act like they're the ones that understand that it's complicated, but they never explain anything that predates October 7th.
No.
So it's just it's such gaslighting. This is gaslighting even more than the Dana Bash one we're going to show. Probably. I'll change my mind later. They're
both really bad, but yes, I think looking at this, what they're doing, the implication is the terrorists and the pro-Palestinian terrorists, and we have lots of other, clips, and I'm sure everybody has seen it these past several months, but it's really ramped up because, as the Hasbara doesn't work, the atrocity propaganda that was used to try to justify this genocide has not worked. It's been debunked as they try to silence people, as they try to ban TikTok, nothing is working. And so now the people who are, speaking out about a genocide peacefully, I think the one thing has been a brick thrown through a window at Hamilton Hall at Columbia, but peaceful.
There has been absolutely no justification for the police forces to get involved to the level they have at all.
At all. No, it is vile.
And I tweeted about this the other day, but I was listening to NPR, and it was actually a segment where they were bragging about the college had come to terms with some of its students. It was Northwestern, I believe. But the guy said, Jewish president of the school, said that his students were they were assaulted by seeing tents. Like that was the exact words he used on this show, assaulted by seeing tents. And that is like violence, according to this new next level. That's how we're going to assign things. It's violence. So we have to take action. So we have to bring in real violence. We have to beat all these people up because Israeli students saw tents. Are you fucking kidding me?
And like, I mean, I don't know the exact percentage, but certainly there is an enormous presence of pro-Palestinian Jewish people as part of all of these campus protests. So they are real. I mean, it is so anti-Semitic to erase all of us. I mean, that's what it's really doing. Like, if you don't believe in the Zionist project and if you aren't supporting this genocide, you're not a real Jew. And then they say the most hateful things. They tell us how we would be raped by Hamas. They can't wait to see us raped. We would be thrown in the ovens. It is so disgusting. And that's coming from Jewish Zionists telling me I'm not a real Jew and wait till you see what Hamas does with you. And then they detail it in these explicit, horrific scenarios that they can't wait till I have to suffer through. It's just disgusting. All right, here we keep going.
I'm so fascinated by the pro-Palestinian movement in this country. I mean, of course, what's happening in Gaza is important. And it's important to point out when you have 34,000 dead, many of them children, that's notable. But one of the things about the protesters is that they don't want to talk about the complexity of the long-running issues in this conflict. And you talk about how you tell your students it's complicated.
Yeah.
Right now, there's an allergy to complexity.
There's an allergy to complexity. There's an allergy to nuance. It is really complicated. This is a difficult situation. We cannot condone or be silent about anti-Semitism, right? That's non-negotiable. We also do protect the right to free speech. And when protests are peaceful, that's really important. There's a grand tradition of that, and that's an important American value. Figuring out how to protect Jewish students and faculty, how to fight anti-Semitism, but at the same time, how to protect free speech, that is not easy. So we never say it's complicated. We never acknowledge it's difficult. What we're trying to do right here, right now, is difficult. I also think it's important to say, although this is spreading, and we just saw Dartmouth, and where I live at UNC, there's a big problem right now. We haven't seen this at Duke. We aren't seeing this on every campus. This is not an entire generation. This is not every college campus. This is not America, you know.
Oh my God, he thinks he's doing us a service here with his nuance. First of all, it's not complicated. Like, I'm so tired of that. You know what's complicated? The Russia-Ukraine conflict, war, that's complicated. This is not complicated. This is, some people have been so propagandized, they don't know how Israel was founded. They have been so instructed to see Jews only as victims who can never be safe. And they think that there's only ever been one Holocaust. And when you look through that lens, you know, it's all emotional. It's not fact-based. But that's not a problem for the history books. That's a problem for your own emotional development.
And everything he's saying here about this is not a movement. This is not a generational thing. This is not happening at many colleges. This is just gaslighting. This is just trying to tell the viewers on CNN that tend to be older. They're not watching social media. They're like, hey, you guys, don't panic too much about this. It's just the kids in a couple spots doing their wacky stuff. And, you know, don't make too much of it. And it's just a lie.
It's a lie.
It's happening at hundreds of colleges. You've got probably 3,000 college kids arrested at this point over this.
Yep.
It's happening
Brutalized
worldwide.
Yeah.
So this is not a US phenomenon. The entire world is shutting down governments.
Yeah. But if you only watch CNN or MSNBC, or I don't even watch Fox, so I have no idea. Then you are incredibly underinformed, and these college kids feel violent. It's just insane.
Going crazy or whatever. This is a particular situation.
Is it a little over-indexed because maybe it's New York City, it's easy to see what's happening there. Are we over focusing on what's happening on these college campuses, and is that distorting our understanding of how widespread these sentiments are?
Way
a
more
little
than
bit,
400
yeah. I think we're
arrests, by the way.
extrapolating from them, and we're making comments about the entire country, that are not entirely true. While they reflect a wider culture, they don't reflect the normal behavior of most Americans every day. We do not see most people behaving this way. And in fact, if you kind of look at what people are paying attention to on social media, a lot of people aren't nearly as dialed into this as Donald Trump would have you believe, or as Mike Johnson would have you believe when he came to New York and said maybe we should call out the National Guard. That was not helpful. That's pouring gas on the situation, not trying to settle it.
Speaking of Congress.
How are they making this Donald Trump's fault?
As Donald Trump would have you believe. He's not even talking about it. Like, he's ignoring it. And when he comes out, he's more pro-Israel than Biden.
Something the other day.
He's also Genocide Joe cheering when his...
he said I'd get rid of all these kids. Like, he's an asshole. He's gross, but he's not the one doing it right now. There is somebody doing it right now. And if Trump were any of these blue states, which is, it's happening obviously in red states too, but the liberals would be blaming Trump for anything that happened in any city, any state, and it would all be because of Trump. And now they're still saying that this is because of Trump. But
the only reason BLM got TV coverage is because Trump was president.
Yeah.
That's why. But they didn't cover it accurately then, because it's still a movement and they want to make sure they can shut the movements down. But it got coverage that was a lot more accurate than we're getting now of these encampments.
Yeah. And to make it seem like these kids are hate-filled and Trumpy, like, it's just they are really convoluting turning themselves.
Today, lawmakers passed this bipartisan bill that defined anti-Semitism to include targeting the state of Israel. It's a fairly broad definition that even some Democrats pushed back on, saying that it really chilled speech against the government of Israel. Is that kind of stuff even helpful in this environment? Is it performative?
Not something that broad isn't helpful. You use the right word. I don't know how we're supposed to interpret that, and I don't know who's going to determine what is simply opposition to Israel and what's anti-Semitism. That's a really hazy judgment to make. It is performative. Politicians are looking to appease certain constituencies. They do that all the time, but at certain junctures, that's very dangerous.
On this issue of Zionism, anti-Israel, et cetera, Zionism has been around for a long time, right? I've noticed, especially looking at the posters, Zionism has become a descriptor for people as opposed to an ideology. That seems to signal how this has become kind of personal for these protesters in a way that it seems different.
It's personal, and the whole thing is being waged in caricature, right? What you were just talking about is the death of nuance, the death of complexity. And I don't think we can afford that in this particular situation. We can't afford it in a lot of situations. And it's one of the things that is really thrusting this country into a kind of dysfunction when it comes to civic discourse, when it comes to political debate, that I think is really dangerous.
Does President Biden need to say something, do you think?
I think he needs to say a little bit more than he has said, but I think one of the reasons he's not saying, some of it's just political caution, but one of the reasons he isn't saying something is because of something you said earlier. It's complicated. I think he's having a hard time figuring out how to weigh in a manner that is constructive.
Yeah, especially given the pressures that he's facing from his own base, some of whom don't even want to talk to him about this. Right. Frank Bruni, thank you very much for joining.
Okay. The leader of the free world, who we're supposed to think is our vanguard, our bulwark against fascism, it's too complicated for him to weigh in. He's weighed in. He said exactly, they have to be peaceful, and mostly they're anti-Semitic, and it hasn't changed his opinion one bit. There's no nuance there. And by the way, they would say that anybody who voted for Trump is a basket of deplorable. They have no problem with lack of nuance when it serves their own project. They're just so vile. Sorry we inflicted that on all of you. That was pretty rough.
Well, I watch them all the time, so I'm glad I shared my grief. But I do think it's important to see what we're dealing with when we deal with normie Dems and people who who aren't in the weeds of Twitter, because they're propagandized by all this stuff all the time. They're hit with all this message that it's complicated. Yeah. And here they are accusing all these kids out there that know all about what's going on, all the details of all this war, the whole history in Israel, the Nakba, first Nakba, the second Nakba, the Hasbara. these people are very informed, and they're telling their audience that it's too complicated and these kids don't get it. Meanwhile, they don't explain any of the history of the region at all, ever.
Nuance and complication. You got to be nuanced.
So
it's so crazy that this is where we are. Like, no lesson is ever learned. It doesn't matter. It's just, we can study, the civil rights in this country. We can study the protests against the Vietnam War. Just nothing matters. And in 30 years, if we all still, survive this country and world that the neoliberal fascists have created for all of us, they will pretend that they were part of this. They'll pretend that they were on the right side of it, and that they, were for the kids. They didn't want, they will pretend that we were all part of it together. We all saw it. And I hope that nobody ever lets them forget or forgives them. And they will say, just the way they do every time I tweet anything about Hillary or any of those disgusting people from 2016, let it go. Don't keep living in 2016. But the problem is, if you let it go, they get away with doing it again and again. So I will never let anything go. I hang on to everything hard.
Amen. I feel like we should show the clip of Romney and Blinken, because it highlights the clear objective of shutting down TikTok and why they really are in trouble, and why we're up against police forces right now, because people are seeing through that. Not, our audience, most of us didn't watch that CNN clip because we know it's bullshit. So we don't watch CNN. Right. But they're losing their control over the media. And that's really highlighted, I think, in this clip.
Yeah. Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It's said it's all the other way around. Typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
By the way, just because they never say this, they are such liars. Hamas accepts the deal. Israeli officials reject the proposal of a war ending. According to the report, Hamas, this is from Haaretz, okay? According to the report, Hamas was guaranteed by the U.S. for a full Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, and that Israeli forces will not continue fighting once the hostages are released. An Israeli official told Haaretz that Israel will, under no circumstances, agree to end the war as part of a deal, and they are determined to enter Rafah. So why can they still continue repeating these lies constantly?
They tell that lie openly. They lie that the public is behind Israel in this. It's just the kids that aren't. Obviously the lies that instigated this genocide were the dead babies, the babies in ovens, the decapitated babies, the rape,
sexual assault
rapes. as a weapon. All that disproven. There's not an ounce of fact that any of this was an orchestrated thing. I mean, you've got maybe, I think they said, I'm making this number up, but I feel like it was 37, 37 children killed on October 7th in Israel.
40 beheaded babies.
Yeah. And we know total.
There was one baby. I mean, it's horrible. Like, I hate even having to talk about it. That's bad enough, but like one
baby. And it was somebody shot in a house where there was a hostage situation or something. So it wasn't like a murder in the street with the baby. It was a stray bullet, not condoning any of that, but a clear departure from the narrative that has never been corrected by CNN and MSNBC. And all this justifies the other rising of these people as savages, so that people can be numb to the result of what happens to these savages, because whatever Israel does, they're not lining up babies and beheading.
They don't even have proof of one rape, which doesn't mean that it didn't happen, but they don't have proof of a single rape, and they still parrot that. I mean, that they're, what's her name? The Lean In lady, Sandberg, just came out with her documentary, which I haven't seen yet, but like all about, the screams before silence, about the mass sexual assault, where they just keep trotting out the same debunked group of people, sometimes changing their name to a new organization. But if you dig a little deeper, it's the same people that's all been debunked, and they get to keep talking about it. Joe Biden knew that the 40 beheaded babies was a lie, and he still kept talking about it. I mean, yeah.
And the New York Times story is a big part of America believing this shit.
That's right.
And the New York Times story was based on 3 people that had no sources really for any of the things they were making claims of, which was backing up the beheaded babies and the mass rape. Their sources were Israeli media people, basically.
Yeah. That's right. So even like, listen, I don't even, the believe all women, I think sometimes can be used inappropriately. For instance, Elizabeth Warren, talking about Bernie, telling her that a woman could never be president. I don't think believe all women is meant to impart that no woman could ever make a misstatement or lie. That's not the point. But this, even if that is your supposition, or even if that's your, ideology that like women don't lie about this ever, no woman has come forward to say that she was raped.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's disgusting. And, I see what Cora says, and yeah, that's absolutely right, because even if Hamas had raped thousands of women, and it's horrific, it does not justify collective punishment and a genocide of a whole people.
And I'm sorry, I think that's where I was going with my point, is that Israel claimed that there were 37 babies killed or something like that.
40. It's just 40. Because it rolls off the tongue better.
So they claim there were 40 babies killed. The hospital records prove that 2 babies died on that day. And
I thought it was one. Yeah.
And one was a stray bullet. One was C-section.
Oh, right.
Yes. So that's right. All they had for evidence. And, if there was more evidence in the baby situation, like the rape, you can hide behind, people didn't come forward, anecdotal, people don't want to share their names, whatever. But the dead babies is a death record.
Right.
You've got one.
Right. Horrible.
So,
I mean, it was just horrible.
So counter that to the 15,000 dead children, dead babies.
Right. At least.
It's just not comparable. And to just ignore it is just criminal on the part of all these journalists.
It's disgusting. And it's been trotted out so many times. In fact, the same woman who wrote for the UN was one of the people who said that Russian troops were taking Viagra to rape babies, which I think they also did. They did it about Cubans. We saw that clip from the CIA. They did it about Saddam Hussein. I mean, that is, and the incubators, babies in incubators. And meanwhile, the rapes that we have seen people attest to, the beheadings, there was a group of Palestinians today, they found, or yesterday, a decapitated body. They were looking for the head. The slaying of babies, the babies, I think I might have just said it, sorry, in incubators, like all of that has been done on the Israeli side.
And today, Israel kicked out Al Jazeera.
So like nobody's ever going to report on anything again.
I mean, this is fascism straight from Israel, backed up by the U.S., and we're locking down the public. I mean, all the protesters, 4,000 probably protesters at this point.
Yep.
Give me a couple minutes. I'll raise the number to 5.
99%.
I'm going to come up with a number that sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awful. All right, for more awfulness, and then we're gonna. I mean, we have a little more awfulness, so hang tight. Dana Bash.
Oh, this one's painful.
Israeli spokeswoman.
Politics, I'm Dana Bash. We start with destruction, violence, and hate on college campuses across the country. This was the scene just a short while ago at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Police clashing with protesters. 12 people were arrested. Hours earlier, protests rocked the University of Arizona, where campus police used chemical irritant munitions to remove protesters.
Chemical irritant munitions. Tear gas.
Around the same time at UCLA, pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian groups were attacking each other, hurling all kinds of objects, a wood pallet, fireworks, parking cones, even a scooter. And before that...
Who was hurling them?
Yeah.
Who? Because we saw the footage.
This groups were hurling at each other. That was all one way. Like, and she grouped in the kids as they're doing it to each other. Like, it's the Israeli groups are being the aggressors here.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. It is just so disgusting. And we have video proof, and they're still going to get on there and lie.
This whole clip is such a lie. It's just...
Yeah.
NYPD was able to clear Columbia University after protesters barricaded themselves inside a campus building. 300 people were arrested at Columbia and City College of New York. But it is unclear how many were actually students. New York City Mayor Eric Adams warned this morning that professional outside agitators are getting involved.
There is a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done and all of a sudden acknowledge the existence of it. This is a global problem that young people are being influenced by those who are professionals at radicalizing our children, and I'm not going to allow that to happen as the mayor of the city of New York.
Many of these protests...
Sorry, but meanwhile, first of all, yes, there are outside people helping train them on both sides, and that's
hell yeah.
Part of the reason they're so good at this, these protesters, they've been so disciplined and organized, is because they have been well trained on how to do peaceful protests. The chant and repeat, the mic check and repeat, the nonviolence, the non-engagement, the de-escalation, all of that, they've been trained. By the way, just the way Tom Hayden helped train Columbia students in '68 when they took over Hamilton Hall, that Columbia touts as one of their, one of the reasons you should come to this social justice leaders of the world university.
Yeah, and I mean the real reason you have outside people here is it's the hub of the protest. If this protest was in the streets, you would have the same people, but you wouldn't be able to call them outside agitators. Right. But we're talking about obviously I support Palestine. Where am I going to go to support Palestine? Am I going to start my own little thing over here or join the big thing on the college campus?
Yeah,
I'm going to join the big college campus thing.
Exactly. Yeah, no, every part of it. It's such disinformation. And the radicalization, I mean, obviously, I think that's a good thing, but they only use it in a negative, which is why then they'll start to say we're the same as the January 6ers.
Yeah, but I mean, we are organized, and that's because we've learned lessons. Activists learn from Occupy, they learn from BLM. They've learned what works and doesn't work. Most of these centers, most of these protests have journalist center or operational command centers where, it's if reporters want in, they can't get in, but they can go talk to somebody there that will put them in front of somebody.
Yeah, they have media relations and all that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's because CNN wants to find the biggest idiot they can at the protest to minimize the whole thing. and then make them look naive, and then, you know, question them about their goals. And they find somebody who's like, well, I just support Palestine. And it makes it all look like it's this little naive.
Like that Peggy Noonan op-ed where she's like, nobody even would talk to me. Like, yeah, because they know what you're going to do. You're going to infiltrate, agitate, escalate, and then write about them, as you said, like they're morons.
Absolutely.
All right, Dana, here we go.
Started peacefully with legitimate questions about the war, but in many cases, they lost the plot. They're calling for a ceasefire. Well, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, the day before Hamas terrorists.
Oh my fucking God.
This part.
Brutally murdered more than 1,000 people inside Israel and took hundreds more as hostages. This hour, I'll speak to an American-Israeli family whose son is still held captive by Hamas since that horrifying day that brought us to this moment. You don't hear the pro-Palestinian protesters talking about that.
She's not once talked about the 10,000 Palestinian hostages. By the way, 2 million. Anybody who hasn't been slaughtered, but who's been kept in an open air concentration camp is a hostage. So, and the ceasefire, like, so go ahead.
Well, there's so many layers to this being fucked up. Okay, let's just take her first statement as fact. Like, okay, Hamas broke the ceasefire. It's 6 months later and 40,000 people are dead. Like, so you can't talk about a ceasefire now? You can't, you know, even if that was true, like, forget the history before
definitely
it.
Was not true, but you're right. Yes.
But forget the history before it. But I mean, if it was true, you still would want to be talking about a ceasefire when you've got 15,000 dead kids, you know, like what the fuck?
They came out right away at the beginning. Remember the White House instructing journalists not to talk about ceasefire, and Karine Jean-Pierre saying it was, what'd she say? And not an abomination, abhorrent that anybody was calling for a ceasefire, like in the first few days. Yeah. All right. Sorry, we're going to get through this off.
We will. Now, protesting the way the Israeli government, the Israeli prime minister is prosecuting the retaliatory war against Hamas is one thing. Making Jewish students feel unsafe at their own schools is unacceptable, and it is happening way too much right now.
This one paid actor kid, they're going to keep showing.
It is not happening. Like,
they wanted to
so
go
many
through
of the
protest.
Jewish protesters, so many of the protesters on the pro-Palestine side includes Jews for Peace.
If not now,
and you're.
Listen, they're having Passover seders and Shabbat dinners together.
We saw that. Everyone saw the video of the woman with the Jew shirt.
Yeah.
And you know her husband's filming her, and she's like spinning around, and I'm brave, and you know, there's no risk. This is not a conflict of violence. Like everyone on the Palestinian side understands to portray an image to the public of safety because it's important to the movement.
Right.
And it is not an anti-Semitic movement.
Right. And what they will say over and over, even if, you know, it reminds me of that video of Norman Finkelstein with the student, and I don't know what campus it was at. It was several years ago. But they're just like crying because he just from words, just because her perception of what Israel is was punctured a little bit, just sobbing. Like if you feel so unsafe, go to one of the universities in Gaza. See how you feel there. See how safe you feel.
I'm a UCLA student. I deserve to go here. We pay tuition. This is our school. And they're not letting me walk in. My class is over there. I want to use that entrance. Why can't they go? Will you let me go in? This could be over in a second. Just let me and my friends go in.
Again, what you just saw is 2024 in Los Angeles, harkening back to the 1930s in Europe. And I do not say that lightly. The fear among Jews in this country is palpable right now.
All right.
It's just one lie after another. It doesn't even matter. Is that it for Dana? Bye, Dana. Bye. Removing her. This we will not watch the whole thing of, but you know, if you want to know why people are scared, it's because people like Dana Bash are saying that this is like 1930s Germany. Oh, Pat, look what just happened.
Oh, you're gone?
I am gone with that face looking just like that. All right. You show something funny, and then I have to bring up these 4 videos remind me when I come back.
I think I'm going to show the Kent State reactions. What do you think?
Perfect.
Should I go there?
Yeah, perfect. All right, I'll see you in a minute.
Oh, I'll get Lola off the screen. Oh, that's too much me. All right. I mean, a lot of this obviously is hearkening back to the 60s and some of the arguments against the Vietnam War and how our government's reacting as well. So, we all know about the Kent State shootings. So this is the public's reaction to that back then.
What do you think about the shooting at Kent?
The people weren't behaving properly, and apparently they have asked for that sort of thing.
So you think the guard was justified?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry they didn't kill more.
Really?
Yes, because they were warned and they knew what was happening and they should have moved out.
If that's what it took to break them up, well, then that's what it takes.
Right after the shooting, we were ordered off campus. We had to leave. So I got home. My mother wasn't there. My father walked in the back door and he looks at me and he says, they should have shot all of them. And I said to him, and I never talked back to my father, I said, don't you know then that one of them, those people would have been me? And he just walked into the other room.
The 2 young women and 2 young men killed yesterday are described by those who knew them as quiet and not at all radical or revolutionary. Sandy Scheuer was 20 from Youngstown, Ohio, not much interested in politics and mainly liked to cook. Jeffrey Miller was 20 from Plainview, New York. William Schrader of Lorain, Ohio. Allison Krause, 19, from Pittsburgh. Today, her father read a statement.
She resented being called a bum because she disagreed with someone else's opinion. She felt that war in Cambodia was wrong. Is this dissent a crime? Is this a reason for killing her? Have we come to such a state in this country that a young girl has to be shot because she disagrees deeply with the actions of her government?
Yep, not a lot has changed.
We're headed there here.
I'll say, in all this talk about Jews being scared, 3 of those 4 people were Jewish who were killed. And as I see people getting their heads bashed in and professors being thrown to the ground, a lot of them are Jewish also, which, I mean, it's not like that's horrible when it happens to anybody. But for all the talk about anti-Semitism, seeing cops rounding up Jews who are protesting a genocide, Dan Abash doesn't mention that once, not once.
Or you think it would be a newsworthy story that the IDF is training a lot of these police forces and not only training, advising the groups moving into these protests.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we have video of it. It's so boring. He just sort of, talks about himself as he's about to go in, but he's an IDF special ops soldier on the campus of UCLA. And, the first skunk spray that was sprayed at one of the rallies at Columbia before they did the encampments, that was, 3 ex-IDF soldiers. There was just a report on how ex-IDF soldiers are given more weight to get into the the teachers call it the School of International Studies at Columbia. It gets into all these weird sort of like infiltration and Jews have their tentacles. It's not a conspiracy, but that's just happening.
I feel like that leads into the Israel's UN ambassador giving a little quick speech.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's do it.
Chants of the pro-Palestinian rioters on campuses are calls for Israel's destruction. We always knew that Hamas hides in schools. We just didn't realize that it's not only schools in Gaza, it's also Harvard, Columbia, and many elite universities.
So, I mean, that's like preordaining these schools to be bombed by Israel. Yeah, there's Hamas in there.
I mean, Biden is so feckless. If they bombed a school, he'd talk about it. He'd negotiate less schools being bombed in the U.S.
Yeah.
Look at you, oh, you unfroze.
Oh my God, what is it with this horrible program? No, I was just still.
But
the wine hit me hard. I haven't really eaten today.
I think since we're on this line, let's look at the Republicans. I mean, they are using all this just as bad as the Democrats, obviously. Listen to how gross this is. And the problem is we don't have a counter to this because we're just as gross on the left, like the Democrats are. Sorry.
Don't bring me down with you. I'm not a live.
We don't have Democrats actually fighting against this kind of rhetoric. No one criticizes this.
We're here to discuss the little Gazas that have risen up on campuses across America and the liberal college administrators and politicians who refuse to restore law and order and to protect other students. These little Gazas are disgusting cesspools of anti-Semitic hate, full of pro-Hamas sympathizers, fanatics, and freaks. The terrorist sympathizers in these little Gazas aren't peacefully protesting Israel's conduct of the war. They're violently and illegally demanding death for Israel, just like their ideological twins, the Ayatollahs in Iran.
They are literally peacefully protesting, you fucking lying piece of shit.
I mean, they all have the same talking points. Everybody's Hamas. Everybody's a terrorist. Yeah, and then it gets worse. We have Representative Mike Collins down at Ole Miss saying this is how we deal with them in Ole Miss. I mean, making like gorilla noises and saying lock her up. And then Representative Mike Collins, Ole Miss taking care of business. That's
open.
That's who you're aligning with.
Racism right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, we definitely don't need to watch all of this, but just in case anybody did not see the NYPD putting out a video after their first day of busting up those encampments that were so violent, acting like they were storming, you know, enemy, you know, bunkers or something of terrorists. It was like the Situation Room from, you know, when they got Osama bin Laden or something.
It was more propaganda, propaganda than killing Osama bin Laden. Like this is a heavily produced video, and they put out 2.
It's so embarrassing. We're just going to do like a quick look at a little bit of it.
So now, right there, what I'm looking at, that's Hamilton Hall. He's on top of it. There's no, and that's the sidewalk, right? Which sidewalk would that be?
That's Amsterdam Avenue.
That's Amsterdam Avenue. So
I'm going to fast forward a little bit because it's just like they're getting ready to storm it. Here we go. Look how seriously they're taking this. We're going to get dinged for copyright for this music, I'm sure of it.
They're breaking. That's violence against that door.
Yeah, property damage.
Right now, we're inside of the Hamilton building in the Columbia University. We're on the 3rd floor of the methodically going through the building, looking for the student protesters that took over this building. As you can see, the emergency service is behind us, conducting operations.
Okay, who's a Blues Brother fanatic? Do you remember that scene where they have all the they're going after Nazis, and the cops are all hut, 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 and there's like 10,000 of them. This is that, and it's all over college kids.
We're checking each floor. We're checking each door. If we come over here, you can see that they have set up sort of an encampment inside of the classroom. There's sleeping bags all over the place. And
an encampment. They're sleeping, and they have snacks.
Now, when we actually came in here, they actually had the desk barricaded up to the window, so that thinking that we were going to come in.
All right, 10:35. We're on the campus of Columbia in the tent city, which you see is cleared. Just a remarkable plan and execution by the NYPD.
Reached out to us. We came in here. We took action, and this is the result of our action. To any other individuals that want to protest, there are other ways to do it besides setting up tents and living like this. This is not the way to get your point across.
There are other ways to do this.
How are people supposed
besides setting up tents? Like somehow you committed this atrocity with setting up tents that is demanding hut SWAT fucking coming down the side of buildings and kicking in windows, and like they look so fucking stupid here. I mean, I don't.
Yeah. Well, especially as so many people have pointed out, like Gen Z, millennials, and anybody who, saw what happened at Uvalde, like these people do nothing. They are the biggest cowards when they're active shooters slaughtering babies in their kindergarten class.
This was the safest exercise they ever could have done. Like, maybe, sure, a couple people got hurt in the January 6th stuff, It does, there's a risk involved. Don't get me wrong, but like these are nonviolent people that you're going in to get, and acting like you need this. This whole thing looked like some sort of fundraising thing, like donate to the military, donate to the cops, because we look what we can do here. And what you did was kick out people that were committing the crime of sleeping in fucking tents.
I mean, and say this isn't how you do it. How do you do it? I mean, by the way, Hamilton Hall again has been taken over many times by protesters. How are protesters supposed to protest? There's not a single thing you're allowed to do that they're okay with. So
years later, they brag on their own, like you said, you went there, like bragging about how, how proud they are of their rebellious, and that they were this, they try to put themselves out like they were the Berkeley of New York.
Yeah. So there was a really, and I will say this is embarrassing for me to admit, but I when I was at Columbia, Edward Said was a professor there, and I'm sorry to say that I never took a class with him, but at that time I grew up thinking that people who were critical of Israel were anti-Semites. I mean, it's terrible. That's just the truth. I'm embarrassed to say it. I'm glad I've taught myself differently, but it was very strong in my, upbringing. So this is the current, I think he is the Edward Said professor of, he holds like a special chair, a professor of Palestinian studies, Rashid Khalidi, speaking outside of the Columbia gates, talking about these protests.
Here, he's great.
Yeah.
Rashid Khalidi. I'm the Edward Said Professor of Modern Arab Studies at Columbia University. I've been teaching here for a total of 22 years. When I was a student back in the 60s, we were told we were led by a bunch of outside agitators, by politicians nobody remembers the name of today. We were the conscience of this nation when we opposed the Vietnam War and racism. Back in 1968 and 1969 and 1970. The Vietnam War stopped because the people opposed it. And the people who led that were students. And the students who led that were here at Columbia and at Berkeley and a few other campuses on this fair Turtle Island. Students have been on the right side of history at Columbia and at other universities ever since the 1960s. We today honor the students who in 1968 opposed a genocidal illegal, shameful war. Columbia University honors them. They're on the Columbia website. You can check it out yourself. 1968 is commemorated. One day, what our students did here will be commemorated in the same way. They are and they were on the right side of history. And that will go down in history. That when the change finally came, and finally the American people who have already opposed this war, who've already opposed this genocide, are able to force their craven politicians to stop it, which we can do. The United States is part of this war. Every plane bombing Gaza is an American plane, F-16s, F-15s, F-35s. Every helicopter, Apache, is American. Every bomb drop is American. Those are our taxes. Those are our representatives. Shame on them. And shame on the administration of this university. They will go down in infamy for having done what they did the other night. Today, nobody remembers the names of the administrators and the trustees who ordered the police onto the Columbia campus on 1968. They have gone down in ignominy. So will these leaders, President Shafiq and the Board of Trustees. And the students will be remembered one day on a Columbia website as the people who helped change the course of this country. Together with the brave students up at CCNY, we should shout out to them. Together with the students at NYU, FIT, all over this country. What we are witnessing in terms of police repression is a tiny fraction of what people under occupation in Palestine have been experiencing for 56 years. The kettling, the checkpoints, the blockades, the police dragging students out. Many of them were injured last night. The lies, outside agitators. Wait until the numbers come out from one police plaza. They were all students. They were our students. And we are ashamed of our university for, instead of continuing the negotiations that many faculty were happy to be part of, decided to bring in the NYPD. This administration has brought disgrace on Columbia University. Shame on them. Shame on them. Shame. This is not and was not about safety and comfort, which is what they claim. Do we feel safer today that 100 of our students have been processed down at one police plaza? Do we feel safer today that faculty and students cannot get onto their own campus? Of course not. This was a craven capitulation to external pressure. The students didn't want it. The faculty didn't want it. Outside forces wanted it. The politicians, the media, which has shamefully failed to report so much of what's actually happening here.
Shame.
And which has exaggerated incidents instead of looking at the whole picture. I don't want to talk more about the media. This is not about safety and comfort.
Sir,
this is about the moral issue.
Why are you blaming Indonesia?
This is not about safety and comfort. This is about a genocide being carried on with American money and with American weapons against a people that has been living under occupation for generation after generation after generation. That's what it's really about. That's what the students were about, and that's what faculty and staff for Justice in Palestine are about.
Why are your supporters trying to block that?
We are faculty and staff who believe that our students should be safe. All of our students should be safe. But the right to protest, the right to free speech, and academic freedom, which is being infringed as we speak, university protocols, the arrangements that this university made since 1968 to deal with these things have been swept aside in an arbitrary fashion by this administration in response to external pressures. Shame on this university. I repeat one more time. This is not about Columbia or CCNY or Berkeley or UCLA or any other place where the students have risen up. This is the conscience of a nation speaking through your kids, through young people who are risking their futures, who are risking suspension, expulsion, criminal arrest in order to wake people up in this country. It's absolutely essential. Public opinion's already with us. It's just the politicians, the media, and the trustees and administration of this university who are blind, deaf, and dumb to the demand of a moral imperative coming from our students. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's Professor Rashid Khalidi. Amazing speech. And I mean, he was in the Occupation of the American Mind documentary that we showed a little bit from a couple weeks ago. Yeah, he's fantastic. Before we go too far, so we don't forget Thank you, Cora. That is incredibly generous and kind. Thank you. Cheers. I know when we don't have the wheel, I'm like nursing my first glass of wine. Do you even recognize me?
No.
Daniel, thank you so much for the super sticker. That is so generous. You guys are amazing. Thank you. It's really.
I just wanted to add, since we have our drinks up, a late cheers to the staff, professors, assistants, whatever, at UNC who have decided they're withholding grades until the university drops charges on the people arrested.
That's awesome.
And we need to see that spread, because we need to make protesting not illegal. I mean, this is ridiculous. So that's a huge move on their part. And let's get it to other colleges.
Yeah. Cheers to them. And I think a lot of the faculty at quite a few of the college universities have said the same thing. Like, we will still teach you, especially everything's online now. We will still teach you. We will give you your grades. But as you're saying, like, they will withhold it from the administration. And also they want their graduating seniors to be able to graduate. Because that's been, the universities are trying to take that away from them as well. All right. Did you want to, I mean, there is the unmasking of these people, which feels like, intended to humiliate and violate them. It's pretty gross. And now they're banning masks on some campuses.
I don't want to show her. I feel like,
I
don't know.
Because
I saw somebody afterwards blur it out. And
I know, I saw that too.
It wasn't her choice, and I don't know how she feels about it, but the point was, and there was one person unmasked fighting it who apparently is disabled and highly at risk of COVID. And so there's that factor. You're ripping off the mask of someone with
in a very crowded space. Yeah.
Right. And it's just gross. So whether it's to dox or shame, or even if it's inadvertent, I mean, masks are protecting people, and it's just disgusting that, like, that's a crime. Like, if you rip my mask off and I'm at risk of getting sick because you did that, that's a crime.
It is a crime. And it does show you once again, especially for all those lefty podcasters who make fun of masks and lie and say they don't work. The anti-maskers are 100%. If you're, titularly on the left and you are with the anti-maskers, you are working with the far right. Because that is part of their chaotic, Koch-funded agenda.
Show some solidarity. You want more people at your protests about Palestine or whatever issue. You're excluding so much of the community that's highly at risk. You're putting yourself at risk. That's a whole nother level. But the benefit, regardless, is, hey, you just wore a mask. You weren't harmed.
Yeah.
And now your face is not exposed,
being broadcast everywhere, because clearly if you see these videos, they are reveling in the cruelty of exposing these faces, which is also why, like, now they're protesting him, like, on that bottom right in this graphic, UConn, like, all the list of things, and it's like
prohibited safety protections in a fucking pandemic. That's what we're at right now. Thank you, left. Useless fucking left.
Vile. All right.
I know we're moving on, but I just want to hear some wise words about outside agitators, and then we can move on.
Awesome.
Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Martin Luther King Jr.
I think it's definitely been due to outsiders. I noticed yesterday in the march, we were able to count 5 local niggers in the whole march.
Do you believe it's financed by Moscow or Peking?
I certainly do. Definitely.
Groups of outside radicals and agitators are exploiting the situation.
Outside agitators were on their grounds training and really co-opting this movement.
Yeah.
They have not changed their rhetoric in 5 decades. It's so crazy.
It can't be the people. It's not the people. They're all like 10,000 showing up in New York all of a sudden overnight with no, half an hour notice. I mean, like, it can't be the people. It's outside agitators.
Always. It's outside agitators. Yeah. Yeah. And I saw Zaina just wrote about Jonathan Greenblatt, and that's right. He also, you're not actually taking a stand if you're unwilling to stand up and be counted. The heroes of Seneca Falls, Birmingham, Stonewall, and so many others, they faced far graver risks and never tried to hide their faces nor menace those with whom they disagreed. The one thing that today's protesters can't conceal, their cowardice. Meanwhile, we've seen when all those Proud Boys were rounded up and on their knees, and they were allowed to face away from cameras and keep their masks on. So, yeah,
I mean, it just shows you that the police are racist. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah.
And which side they're on in this situation, the side paying them. You've seen all this propaganda so that New York can raise more money and make the argument that they need another $50 billion.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like New York gets $1 billion or something.
Just make up a number, Pat.
They get $78 billion in New York for the police.
Fake news. Okay. Before we go to our comedian, do we want to do the Gen Z, the active shooter drill thing? Or
I don't even know what that is. Did I miss a video you put up?
I just think this is interesting because we have taken away so much from this generation of kids.
Oh, I know.
And the way they have grown up having to deal with things that we just never had to deal with in the same way. Like, I remember having to go under a desk with my hands over my head in case, there was a nuclear bomb, which is obviously ridiculous. But there was there's much more immediate, like, active shooter drills that and my kids have been on lockdown at their schools probably 5 different times with an active shooter.
Just the nuclear thing, like, I don't want to say traumatized me, but like our generation in the 80s or whatever, growing up as kids, we were like very aware of the threat of nuclear war. But imagine being a kid and another shooting. So like all this is real. We have to be scared of it. We have to be worried about it. It's happening. We see it happening. It's not ambiguous. So it really affected their generation.
So yes. And I think that this video that we're about to show is in response to Humboldt, UC Humboldt.
Holding back.
Barricading the door, holding them back. And I don't know, for those of you who are watching on Wednesday, we went out on a video with the water jug, like
bonk.
Yeah, the bonking against the cops. But
Beautiful.
So this is a young woman's description about how her generation is dealing with things.
So universities all around the country right now are protesting in solidarity with Palestine. I believe Columbia and USC are the ones that most people are talking about right now. I'm going to share a different one because reading the news about it was the best thing I've read all month. Cal State Polytechnic in Humboldt. They had a sit-in in one of the university's buildings, and like they do, the cops showed up. And these protesters barricaded them out of the building, physically forced them out, and set up barricades made of chairs, tables, the supplies around them. And I cannot get over the irony. Y'all bitches thought you were gonna enter a school building with Gen Z in it? Does anybody care to remind me what type of drills we had to deal with? We were prepared our entire adolescence for literally this. And it worked. The cops fucking left. And I am so proud. These students used the skills that we were forced to obtain because we were constantly in fear of being suddenly under attack. And for a lot of those students, they were. We're in America. Someone in that building was working from experience. Somewhere in that building was at least one survivor. And it worked. They successfully fought off the bad guys with guns. It just looked a little different than what Republicans were expecting.
It's just that last part. I was like, really? Just Republicans? But anyway, but yeah, I love that. And it is so fierce and true. And now they're being demonized. These kids who have been left with crazy debt, no hope of getting a good paying job, no hope of owning a home, active shooter drills, protesting a genocide across the world.
Yeah. But TikTok's got to go because you would hear this more. And like we're always sharing TikTok videos, you know, it's like, where is their voice going to show up? I mean,
Dana Bash just says they're anti-Semites. They're violent anti-Semites. Hamas.
So when they're crushing the media, they're really crushing. It's like breaking up a protest, and they're breaking up a protest, which is TikTok, which will be Twitter next, which will be,
anything they don't like.
It's all they can do.
But they'll keep talking about how protest is a fundamental American right, freedom of speech, like at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where they barely mentioned all of the slaughtered Palestinian journalists who were targeted by Israel, and where they talked about the freedom of speech while they are sending cops in to bust peaceful protesters' heads. Okay, moving on to the good stuff, right?
Yeah, we should transition. Let's do a little timeline cleanse while we're moving on to the comedian who is funny as hell. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah.
Landlord, you saved me. You saved me from temptation. The temptation of owning a pit or a wall-mounted television. I want everybody in the house tonight who has a landlord to open up your heart and let your landlord in. And if you don't let him in, it doesn't matter. He's got a key to your heart and he's coming over anyway. Now sing.
I love my landlord. He's my salvation. He stores things in the attic, but won't install insulation. He can force me to move out, and I won't complain. 'Cause to him I bow down. I'm his capital. Every 7 days, you are the light, you own the light, and when the light goes out, I replace the light, and when my tenancy ends, you still own the light, even though I pay for the replacement light bulb.
I love her. I will never stop loving her.
Yeah, that little girl.
Yeah, she's
the meme girl. Yeah, she's
meme girl.
All right, so we're moving on, right?
Yeah, let's get to Malik.
Malik Elassal.
Elassal. Here we go.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
I was just realizing that one of the videos that we haven't shown, and I don't even know if it shows it that clearly, but is at University of Alabama, where there are the pro-Palestinian protesters and then the counter-protesters, and the counter-protesters are shouting, "Fuck Joe Biden."
Oh,
and
I love that
the
one.
protesters,
We should probably show that.
It's only 12 seconds. But
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we move on.
This is
Sorry.
right here. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like what brings everybody together.
Anyone thinking that guy is going to win?
Hated by the whole world.
Yeah,
by the whole world.
Just tragically awful at every level of politics.
Truly. All right, Malik Elassal. Here we go.
That's all
He gets
the
more
teachers that
political
told me
later.
I never make
So
it. I just like to repeat stuff that rappers say. Like, that makes me feel good. But my teachers legit did not believe in me. Like, I went to a Muslim school. Like, I went to an Islamic private school. And I told them that I wanted to do comedy, and they'd never even heard of that. So they're just like, no. No. You want people to laugh at Muslims? I was like, yeah, kinda, yeah. I had another teacher who was also the imam. He was like the religious leader, and he found out that I wanted to do comedy, and he took me aside in like a private moment, and he said, "You want to be a funny guy, huh? You think this life is funny, my friend? Fun and games? When you see the power of Allah on the day of judgment, brother, you will not be laughing." And I was just like, I'm still gonna do it. It made me want to do it even more so that I could be like all the rappers that I looked up to, you know? Like I did have teachers that did believe in me, but that's not good for my narrative. So I like to just focus. I was listening to a Meek Mill song one time, and in the middle of the song, Meek Mill goes, "To the teachers that said I wouldn't make it here, I spend a day with you, make a year." And I heard that, and I was like, I'm gonna flex just like that as soon as I get on. And then I became a comedian, and it's good. A little hard to flex, though, to be honest with you. Like, what could I even say to the teachers that said I wouldn't make it here? I'll make a year what you make a year. Like, that doesn't sound as good. You didn't believe in me, and now we're roommates, dumbass. Good job. Yeah. He told me I was gonna starve in front of the whole class. I remember. He said, "You want to be a comedian? You're going to be very hungry, my friend." And I wish he could see me now, be like, "Bro, I've never been hungry a single day in my life because I still live with my parents, asshole. Did you think about that?" No, you didn't. I'm never hungry. My mom cuts me fruit all the time. And then she brings it into my room because she has zero boundaries. She just walks right in. My mom's sick, man. She's a Muslim woman. She wears a hijab. I don't look very Muslim, like just off look, so nobody ever bothers me about it, you know? She wears a hijab. She looks Muslim all the time. One time she told me a story. Yeah, it's like a Halloween costume. She looks Muslim all the time, you know? So one time she told me that she was driving around and a guy pulled up next to her in traffic and saw that she was wearing the hijab, and he like flipped her off, and then he like followed her in his car for a while. And I was like terrified when she told me this. I didn't want to ask her this question, but I asked. I was like, "Mom, have you ever like thought about taking off your hijab?" And she was like, "Malik, I would rather die a martyr than let those people change me." I was like, "All right, Tupac, fucking relax. Jesus, chill out. Don't talk like that. Don't wish a motherfucker would. That's exactly the opposite of what I wanted. She's nuts. Crazy talk." But I was proud of her. Like, I don't want her to change anything about herself, but I want her to be safe. So it's like, what do we do here? You know, like something's got to change. Society is not going to change. So it's like, we got to figure something out. What I'm thinking of doing is coming out with a line of hate crime-proof hijabs that my mom can wear. Completely hate crime-proof, okay? First one, I'm thinking standard, just Confederate flag hijab. Because listen, that's gonna short circuit. Nobody's gonna know what to do when they see that. Next time some guy pulls up next to my mom in traffic, he's gonna be like, "Oh." She got us. She wore the piece of cloth that we like. And this is another one. This is a prototype. I don't know if it's ready for the streets just yet, but all white hijab, but just a little bit pointy in the back. Just a little bit pointy. Not all the way, but just deceptively pointy. Just for some peace of mind. I am looking for peace of mind, man. I've been going to a therapist for 4 years. I think it's a scam. At least I don't have a good therapist. Because I didn't like get referred like by a doctor. Like I just like went online. Like I just like Googled help. Please help. And then it took me to a website, and on the website it was like, write out a list of your problems so we can use that to like match you up. And I was like, all right. And I selected anxiety because that's what I was having. And then it was like, write out the anxiety, explain what that feels like so that we can use that to better match you up to somebody. And I was like, it's anxiety, it's not gonna make sense. But I was like, okay, I'm not as good of a Muslim as I was raised to be, but I still feel like a good person, you know? And I feel conflicted because in school, they taught us that everything is written before we're even born. Like all my decisions are made for me. So it's like, am I just doomed to make these mistakes that God wrote for me? Like what if Allah judges me unfairly? And then I submitted that. And then they were like, you should talk to Helen about this. Helen's good for shit like this. She's on top of it, trust me. And I was like, Helen, are you even listening to me? What is Helen gonna do? You couldn't have brought me like a Dr. Mahmoud El-Shabazz, somebody To just tell me to pray, brother, your life is haram. Of course you feel terrible. At least he understands. I'm gonna be in a meeting with Helen. She's gonna be like, tell me more about this Allah character. He sounds toxic. I mean, why would you hang out with a guy like that? Who is he to judge you? And I'm like, well, he's the only one who can, so.
I'm pausing it here for two reasons. One is because I'm so afraid that we're going to get dinged for copyright if we don't like talk over it just for a moment.
Oh, yes. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But also because I am seeing Reflect the Sun. I think possibly you have a heavy thumb today and you keep pressing the gift button. You are incredibly generous. Thank you so much for the super chat and then for gifting all of these. Wait, I'm going to remove it for a second. Oh God, is it going to be a problem? Gifting 10 memberships, gifting 20 memberships. That's amazing. Thank you. Yes, you're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really sweet. I'm so sorry to like cut into his role, but I'm hoping this also prevents them from shutting us down. I had to cut everything
I didn't even think about that.
out of our last episode because of
HBO.
Yeah,
you
can't show Bill Maher and HBO.
He's safe, apparently, from criticism.
Yes. Okay. That's so. What a nice
Back to the
thing.
Karens.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Reflect the Sun, and everybody. You guys are just awesome. We really appreciate you so much. Okay, I'm gonna put Malik back on. I mispronounced his name originally. It's Malik.
And that's my therapist, Helen. I've been with Helen for about 4 years. And we get into arguments. Like, I'll fight with Helen because, like, she just tries too much, like, too new age of ideas. It's not practical. This is when I knew, like, I have to find someone else, is when she asked me what my astrological sign was in the middle of a set. Like, my therapist was like, what's your star sign? I was like, Helen, come on. We can't both be mentally ill, you know? It's gotta be... We're just two crazy people yelling at each other now. We don't need to be in an office. She's like, you're an Aries. And I was like, you're good, Helen. You're good. You can stay. Yeah, I'm working on, because I get angry a lot, so I'm trying to figure out, like, what's good, what's the right thing to get angry about. Because I'll, like, there's stuff that's, like, not worth it to get angry about. Like, it's just... This is when I realized I had to stop doing it. It was when Kyrie Irving got in trouble. When Kyrie got in trouble, that was big. Because he was like my favorite basketball player. He's one of the best basketball players of this generation. And he got in trouble because he shared an anti-Semitic documentary on his Twitter. It was wild. Like he, like in the documentary, like denied the Holocaust. It was like nuts. And like they wanted to kick him out of the NBA, and I agreed. I'm like, this is bullshit. There's no place for that. But then I caught myself in the middle of it, and I was like, wait a second, why am I even mad at this guy? A year before this, he said he thought the earth was flat. Like, if a guy tells you that he thinks the earth is flat, don't ask him about the Jews. Like, what are you doing? What did you think he was gonna say? If you walked in on your girlfriend cheating on you, you don't need to be like, let me see your phone. Unlock your phone. I can see. The way this guy's hitting it from the back, you're lying. I can tell. There's no woke flat earthers. There's nobody who's like, the earth is flat, but, I love everybody on it. We're all doing our best on this frisbee ride in space, man. That's traveling upwards to simulate gravity. We're all doing our best, and we got to pay attention because it's heating up. The disk is heating up. And the water's going to rise. It's going to pour off the sides. We got to be careful. People don't usually double up on causes like that. They're like, the earth is flat and there's too many Filipinos on it, and it's going to tip over if we don't find the edge that the Jews are hiding from us and push the... Like, who cares? He's a basketball player. It doesn't... He's not making the rules. Kanye was the same thing. That was tough for me when Kanye got in trouble. Because I've been a Kanye apologist my whole life. Every time Kanye said something stupid, I was always the guy in the back of the room being like, just wait for the album, bro. Like, you don't get it. He's in the future. You're not an artist. How could you get it? And then he was like, I'm gonna go DEFCON 3 on the Jews. And I was like, this better be a good album. This sounds like the past, yeah, to be honest with you. My family's from Lebanon. You know, I'm from Canada. Like, I'm raised in Canada. But my mom raised over in Lebanon. She tells me wild stories about what that was like for her. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon. So my mom grew up with like Israeli tanks rolling through her village. Like, they used to come into the house and do check stops all the time. It's a crazy way to grow up. One day, the Israeli military fired a missile at my grandma's house, and it broke through the wall and just landed inside and just spun out. And they just all had to like, just didn't explode. The missile just did not go off. And they all just had to like back away from the missile and just like pray that nothing happened. And then the Israeli military just came and like scooped it up. They're like, sorry about that. And then they just took it and left. But if that missile went off, I would have never existed. Like, my whole family would have been vapor. I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. So I still listen to Kanye sometimes, you know? Like, I feel that's fair. Bro, when I woke up today and saw the news, I was like, my taping. You guys are a dope crowd. That's good. Thank God. Bro, I swear, if I'm lucky, bro, my luck, Kanye's gonna drop tonight. He's gonna drop the most racist album you've ever heard. So this is the first year of me doing stand-up where I've gotten to like travel a lot, and it's been very fun. It's a lot of travel. I'm not complaining, but it's, you know, it's a lot. So I'm trying to like figure out how to streamline that experience, because something would always go wrong. I would lose my boarding pass or something, and then I would be in the line fumbling with my email, holding it up. So I started doing this thing where I'd make my phone background my boarding pass, just so it'd be easy to scan in real quick. But I also do this thing where sometimes before I come on stages, I make my phone background like a list of my jokes, just so it's easy for me to reference, just like 1 or 2 words to remind me. And I forgot to switch it. And I just went to get on the plane. I just showed like a nice lady that works at the airport a list that said Islamic school, prove them all wrong. Bulletproof hijab. My therapist is the crazy one. And Israel payback. And I was just sitting there like, oh, no. I think that stuff's funny. Thank you guys very much.
Oh my gosh, we made it through without getting shut down. He's great, right? Malik Elassal, love him. Good find.
He is, and I watched a little more of his comedy than just that. He's really funny. Please check him out. I mean,
yeah, that's great. And if there's anybody that you guys know of, send us some suggestions, because we're always looking and we're always trying to get people to come on. So let us know if there's anybody we should know about. Lynn, thank you.
Malik Elassal, come on.
Malik
whatever.
Elassal.
Malik,
come on.
God damn
Punch
it.
Up Pod.
Come on, Punch Up Pod. Mock us.
Yes, please. We would love it. Lynn,
great.
thank you. Great. Thank you so much for the super chat. That was really generous and kind, and we so appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So I still listen to Kanye. I know I'm the only one. I love Kanye. I do. I mean, I know he's an asshole, but like everybody's an asshole. I'm not looking to him for like his actual, opinions on anything.
It's so different. So like there's Chris Brown who beat his girlfriend, wife, whatever.
Like, I don't like his music, so I can make a real hard. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking.
Me, like that's a different. I mean, I know there's Kanye has a bigger platform and it impacts more people, but like, Chris Brown is a douchebag, violent person. Kanye's fucked up.
Yeah.
And uneducated and not smart and a narcissist, delusional narcissist / mental illness.
Yeah.
And his music's better.
So it's easier to have principles.
So, it's a little different. I don't know. But.
Yeah, I know. I mean, anyway, I love the way he framed all of that. Good discovery. I love it. All right. Do we have anything else? Are we done? Is this it?
I think we should probably one good thing it. I don't know.
Let's one good thing it. Well, that's one good thing. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for hanging out with us now twice a week. What? Our cups runneth over.
Crazy.
We'll see you Wednesday. Cheers. Keep punching up.
See you next week. Or no, Wednesday. In a couple days, apparently.
Yeah, you're barely going to miss it.
Bye.
Bye.
Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Och vi har odlat jorden. Och vi har odlat jorden. Och vi har skördat vetet. Och vi har skördat vetet. Vi har plockat citronerna. Och vi har plockat citronerna. Och pressat oliverna. Och pressat oliverna. Och hela världen känner till vår jord. Och hela världen känner till vår jord. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Och vi har kastat stenar på. Och vi har kastat stenar på. Soldater och poliser. Soldater och poliser. Och vi har skjutit raketer. Och vi har skjutit raketer.